we can teach people the technical skills, and we're willing to take that chance as long as they show sort of that acclimation to learning, that ability to learn and that type of thing. We're willing to upskill our employees. We're willing to take people who have no experience whatsoever and upskill them as long as they demonstrate that they have that willingness and that ability to take on that learning.
Tami, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me.
It's nice to see you again. How have things been?
Been very busy. Siemens Mobility is in heavy growth mode, and so we in people and organization have been extremely busy, but it's a good busy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd always say like never complain when you're busy, right? Like, because
That's correct.
my whenever things quieten down, I always say to Shay, my co-founder, I'm like, what's wrong? It's way too quiet. We're not busy enough.
Kind of the same as with kids. When the kids are quiet, you're like, uh-oh.
That's true. Tell everyone a little bit more about you personally and your journey to where we are now. Did you choose HR or did it choose you?
So I started out in insurance, and I had actually gone to a conference where the vice president of human resources for Chrysler was speaking at this insurance conference. I had already started getting the sense that I didn't want to stay in insurance for the rest of my life. And I saw this vice president of HR for Chrysler speaking. I thought, I could do that. And so he talked about what he was doing and how he got into it. And I decided to go back to school, get my MBA, and then take kind of a focus in human resources and launch into that. And so that's what I did. For the most part, I've been in human resources for over 30 years. I don't want to say how many. Although
he's like, I'm aging myself right now. I don't want to age myself.
I'm not going to get too exact. I did, however, take about a 6 to 7 year break.
Okay.
Breaks, maybe not the right word, but a side path out of human resources for a while. And I actually use that story a lot when I'm mentoring early career or people who are kind of on their career journey, because it was one of the most important things I did. I'm glad I got back into human resources, but it was a growth opportunity. It was a learning opportunity where I actually got out of human resources and went into basically operations in the printing industry, something I knew nothing about, but it really tested my skills. It tested my ability to be flexible, to learn things. It tested my ability to focus more on my leadership style instead of my technical knowledge. And so I did that for about 6 or 7 years, kind of in the middle of that, or maybe about a third of the way into my career. Then when I moved to Atlanta for personal reasons, decided to get back into human resources, ended up with Siemens. And that was 19 years ago last week. So
Nice.
I've actually been with Siemens for about 19 years.
Wow. Amazing. That's so rare in this day and age. One thing I would say, like of the 600 episodes I've done, one of the things that reoccurring themes of CHROs is that many of them step away from the role of HR and maybe go into sales or R&D or operations and come back. And and many of them tell me that, Chris, that actually, I kind of look at that experience is what prepared me to be a CHRO.
Absolutely agree with that. I think that in my case, it was stepping into a traditional business role. What it really did is it helped me to experience and think like my business partners had to deal with customer issues that my business partners had to deal with production issues. It really gave a new empathy, and I think a credibility as well when I went back into human resources, a credibility that people understood I wasn't just going to give them textbook HR, that I really was going to put a business application to it. I don't regret that decision at all. It was exciting. It was fun. Like I said, it tested myself. It developed me. And I encourage others to take risks, calculated risks, not to do something just incredibly outrageous, but calculated risks, and be willing to push yourself, to challenge yourself and step outside of your comfort zone.
I'm seeing that more even with companies hiring for the role of CHRO. So if I look at, yesterday I was speaking to CHRO of Novartis pharma company, and their new CHRO had a 20-year background in R&D, and his first ever role is CHRO straight in. Wow. But they wanted someone with that background. And then similar, a few months before that, I was in New York at L'Oreal, and Stephanie, their new chief chief HR officer, again, first time role, but had been working in L'Oreal in the R&D and innovation team for about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Lego's new chief people officer has a background in sales and operations, never worked a day in HR. So all three of those have never had a single day in HR, but are now succeeding and doing incredibly well. And they're surrounded by an incredible team of specialists that have that knowledge and
Mm-hmm.
experience. They don't have to know all of these things. It's been incredible to see the evolution of the role of what it means to be a HR leader.
And it's consistent with what we're seeing in our employees as well, where we're really kind of trying to, and I know we're going to talk about it a little bit more later, but where we're really trying to focus on skills and capabilities and
Yes.
less on technical knowledge.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
Because the technology is changing so quickly. We'll teach technical or again, support technical with technical experts, but it's those skills and capabilities, that decision-making capability, that leadership capability, even in, individual contributor roles, it's those skills and capabilities that are really critical to how we move the organization forward and how we move careers forward.
Yeah, it's such a good point. Like if you try to hire a CTO now based on the skills they learned in a traditional model, they'll fail very quickly. Those skills have changed dramatically of what it means, and you have to upskill, reskill constantly as a HR leader to be relevant, stay relevant, and be able to deal with the business challenges. Let's jump into that then. So, how is Siemens approaching skills-based matching in the organization?
In Siemens Mobility, which I'm head of people and organization for Siemens Mobility North America, we are very engaged in manufacturing. We manufacture trains or train sets and the infrastructure that supports trains and rail. And then also we provide service in the rail arena. One of the things we're finding is that the skill sets required are rapidly changing, and that we have to be able to upskill our employees to work on that. And unfortunately, with that change, there's a lack of skilled resources available. So if we first start talking about in the manufacturing arena, we have a heavy need in rail manufacturing for welding, for example. And yet we simply had, for a while there, we knew that we weren't going to be able to find enough welding experience in the regions in the area where we needed to do the manufacturing. And so we very quickly partnered with community colleges, with local educators on developing welding curriculum so that, again, this conversation we're having, we can teach people the technical skills, and we're willing to take that chance as long as they show sort of that acclimation to learning, that ability to learn and that type of thing. So in manufacturing, we've partnered with local colleges, community colleges to develop the curriculum we need. We're willing to upskill our employees. We're willing to take people who have no experience whatsoever and upskill them as long as they demonstrate that they have that willingness and that ability to take on that learning. And this goes all the way through the organization. It's not just in the manufacturing at the individual contributor production level. We see this in the rest of the organization as well. We're providing unprecedented amount of upskilling, digital learning, digital transformation opportunities. We've made learning a priority because we realize the organization is evolving, technology is evolving, our customers' expectations are evolving. So we've made learning a priority. Just like anything that you make a priority, at first it's a little bit almost artificial. We have to force it, where we created like requirements on learning hours. But the whole point is that what we're trying to do, digital learning hours, the whole point is what we're trying to do is to make it a habit, a muscle habit. And slowly people will start to embrace and understand what it is they're getting from that and what we as an organization are getting from that. It's not only that we're encouraging our employees to develop and focus on learning, we're requiring it. So we're encouraging it, we're requiring it. But quite frankly, I think it's not just a business imperative. I think it's an obligation. I think we have an obligation to our employees to help them move along in this rapid transformation and to make the learning that can help them evolve into stable, sustainable careers part of their future as well.
Firstly, I love the fact that you're looking at the local context and investing in that skill shortage that you see. by
Mm,
partnering with the colleges, universities, etc., and creating those programs, and not just looking at it from looking for people that have a growth mindset, right? That want to
mm,
learn, grow, develop, as opposed to you need a degree
mhm, mhm.
to be able to do that. So you're looking at, again, like you just said, for a skills lens. Has that also had a an impact on the diversity of
Mhm.
talent that you're now hiring? I'm sure that there's a correlation.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still focusing on that and still making sure that we're putting programs in place to support that. But you had previously asked, what did it look like to focus on skills? We've introduced digital technologies like Eightfold that looks at skills and capabilities. But then we've also introduced digital technology like Textio that allows us to look at something that we're going to post, requisitions that we're going to post and it uses kind of an artificial intelligence approach to make sure that what we are posting is equally attractive to diverse audiences,
Right.
but it's not solely zeroing in on one sort of population, but that it's opening up and really trying to attract as broad and diverse an audience as possible,
Mm-hmm.
because we do recognize that innovation comes from different ideas, different experiences, different capabilities. And the more that we can bring into the funnel within Siemens, the more innovation that we can inspire within our own organization. So again, digital or artificial, I guess if you want to call it, artificial intelligence capabilities in our talent attraction or our talent acquisition process are very important. And then again, continuing to focus or encourage our employees to develop those skill sets as well in their work processes.
Mm-hmm. Walk me through a little bit more how you're using Eightfold, because it's an organization that's come up quite a few times in conversations recently. What was the decision making behind Eightfold, and how is that being executed in the
Yeah.
business?
That was a global decision, so I can't say that I personally was involved in that decision, but what I can tell you that how my team has really embraced it is using Eightfold with the influx of all the different resumes and applications that we get. It was overwhelming for a while there, what the team was getting. And what Eightfold has allowed them to do is to have that pre-search conversation with the hiring manager about what really is it that you need this person to do or this role to do. What does the outcome of this role look like? What skills does it take to get there? What kind of impetus do you need to see in the individual and that type of thing? They have that conversation, and then Eightfold allows them to match the capabilities that are out there in those, I'm going to say thousands of applicants for any one role. Let's say it's in the 50 to 100, maybe more applicants that they're getting. It allows them to very quickly sort through that for them, brings up the biggest, the best matches, kind of ranks them for them. And then the talent acquisition professional can look at it in more detail and say, yep, I'm going to go ahead and make a call to these 10 individuals. I'm going to shortlist these 5. So it takes what was an overwhelming process and now very quickly gets them to a panel of candidates that they can interview. Plus, what we find is that, okay, fine, they get the person for that role.
Yeah.
We get the interview, we get the person onboarded, et cetera. And now we also have 4 other great candidates for 2 other roles coming up in the
Oh,
future.
interesting. Okay.
So it not only creates that match at that point in time, but it allows us to create matches and panels and candidates for future application as well. And it allows us to stay in touch with this population as well, to keep people interested in Siemens Mobility, to keep people interested in Siemens, and to allow us to really continue to sell why we are the employer of value that
Mm-hmm.
people should be interested in.
No,
Yeah.
I love that. How has that shaped the dynamic in the relationship between the hiring managers and your team? Because you're having a different type of conversation now.
Instead of, and one of my teams said this best, she said, we're not order takers anymore. Like, I need X, go get
Exactly.
me X. We get to have really good conversations now about the best way to fill a role and the best way to drive success in the
Mm.
organization. So they feel like they are really strategic partners now. and not order takers.
Yeah.
And I loved it when when she said that to me.
I was hoping that would be your answer.
Yeah. Okay.
I kind of assumed that would be the case as well. And I'm really
Yeah.
happy to hear that as well. That's
Yeah.
great. And also, I feel like for the hiring manager now, they probably feel like they're much more in control and have more of a voice of the type
Mhm.
of talent they're looking for. And they're probably,
Mhm.
and they're going to, and therefore they're going to be more engaged
Yeah,
in
they're
the
more
pro.
satisfied,
Yes.
they're more engaged. The process is going much smoother than it used to. Our time to fill, even in a difficult competitive market, is improving, is getting better. So, yeah, the overall result is that everyone has benefited from it.
No, I love that. I love that. We mentioned about growth mindset earlier. How are you
Mhm.
ensuring employees really have a growth mindset?
Again, we use behavioral interviewing. We've really trained our talent acquisition employees as well as our hiring managers to ask people about when it was that they felt most accomplished and to give real concrete examples of what it was that allowed them. We've asked them to tell stories of exactly when they did develop. How did they know they were developing? How did they know that they had actually progressed in knowledge and capability? I mean, very again, behavioral interviewing, like I said, but really training both talent acquisition and hiring managers on how to kind of peel back the layers of the onion when they have those conversations instead of just, I was a project manager at
Yeah,
XYZ, and then I became a senior project manager at XYZ. Okay, that would be growth in theory on paper, but tell us about what the experience felt like and what you as a person took out of it.
hmm. Outside of that, what are some of the other competencies that you look for now when you're hiring?
Definitely, I think this digital, we want to see people who have an interest in digital technologies. We want people to have that interest in learning, interest in contributing, interest in developing. We want to see people who, quite frankly, have an interest in being part of a culture or community because more than ever, I think we also realize it's through teaming, that the great results happen. COVID, was shifting in so many ways for us and did some great things in terms of teaching people to work remotely and helping people learn to collaborate better. But one thing that we are now really starting to see is that COVID forced us to kind of be separate, of course, right?
Yeah.
But now we're finding people really desiring that team again, wanting to be part of something, not wanting to be, don't get me wrong, people still enjoy remote work or hybrid work, which is a combination of the two, where they get to have some remote work, but then they also get to be part of a community. And we're starting to see that real desire to be part of a community again. And we think that's important, actually.
Yeah.
And so that is something we're looking for is people who can demonstrate a need to be part or wanting to be part of a team because we do realize that that's how you get optimized benefit in the organization. So
Interesting.
it can't just be a sum of the parts, it has to be more than the parts, right? And that's what teaming does.
That's such an interesting thing, right? Because I never really thought about it, looking at it through that lens of, does this person want to be part of a team?
Mhm.
As well. And I think many people love the idea early on of the idea of working completely remote, but then they got lonely
Exactly.
and they
We,
realized that actually I missed that part.
we're social creatures and I think maybe because things got so intense for a while at first COVID was a respite, where it gave people that little bit of a break.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I think people realize but we do need that. And I mean, people thrive on different things, but organizations thrive on people working together.
As we sort of move towards sort of the end of the year, what are some of the HR trends that you think are going to roll over to the new year that are going to evolve?
So I think a focus on learning, a focus on upskilling and transformation is critical. And I do think we're going to continue to see that. I think more than ever, there is a focus on the people experience. And that's not just while they're an employee, that's the entire life cycle
Mm-hmm.
of the employee experience. And so that starts when they're candidates, then when they're onboarded, then during their formative developing years as an employee, even on their more mature years as an employee, and then of course the offboarding experience. I think all of that, we're starting to see how important all of that is. And I think that's a trend that's really going to take precedence. And the reason for that, again, is because of how tight the labor market still is, I think, and how getting the skills, the capabilities you need, it's so much more efficient to retain your existing employees and to keep your existing employees motivated than it is to constantly go out and have to replace and find new. And don't get me wrong, there are times we're going to have to do that. We've announced we're building a new facility in Lexington, North Carolina, that we're going to build a brand new rail manufacturing facility. So clearly we're going to have to go out and get some new employees, but we're also going to be using some of our existing employees to help develop those employees. We're going to be giving existing employees opportunities to be we already are, to be part of something, new and exciting and growth. So I think this focus on employee experience all the way through the process is going to become even more important than it was. In prior organizations, you always heard about employee surveys and stuff, and they used to call them employee satisfaction surveys, but it's not just satisfaction. We don't need people
to feel satisfied. I get what you mean. Yeah.
We need people engaged, right?
Yes.
And so then there was employee engagement surveys, but now it's more than even being engaged. We need people progressing, developing, learning, growing with the organization as the technology changes, as the organization changes. We need people who want to be part of that journey. And the best way to be part of that journey is to make sure we're taking care of their experiences throughout the process.
I agree with you. It's so important, right? It kind of, that was kind of one of the silver linings that came out of the pandemic, of this sort of this focus on employee experience, that and well-being. I feel like those emphasis on those two things. We've heard this a million times. We've been doing this with our customers forever. Creating that customer experience that's super tailored. Why are we not doing this for our own people? It kind of seems crazy when you think about it, right? And also, similar with the customer experience, it's going to evolve as the business evolves, as the person's career, what they require at different stages of their career journey. That's also going to evolve. Right now, when I think about my career and others, I need to be working with an organization that understands that. I need to understand, what does this mean for Chris in my context? I don't need all of these services thrown at me that are not relevant, or this PR and comms and messaging that, maybe 1 out of the 10 things actually impact my role. It has to be tailored if you want to keep your employees anyway. And same with the learning, like you said earlier, right? The learning experience also has to be tailored to them. And you said earlier, we owe that to our employees.
Right. Yeah, it's not just a business imperative. I think we owe it to them.
They will repay that by going above and beyond. They will be more engaged. They feel more empowered that they're taking charge of their own career, which I would love to have had that when I was younger.
And with that, though, you have to also offer, I think, psychological safety, that it's okay to try new things.
Yes.
And we expect that, it is a learning, as long as the focus is in the right direction. That's the important point.
Yeah. And that's part of innovation, right? You're not going to get it right the first time. And also for like HR itself also has to understand that it's okay that you're also going to make mistakes and try new things. In the past, we kind of tried to get everything perfect, and you'd have this perfect plan that never goes to plan, and the 3 years becomes 5 years, and we pivot multiple times. And I thought now it's okay to, and you should communicate that we're trying this. This is what we're going to try, and clearly communicate how that's gone along the way, and people will understand that. We don't need to always have this operation of perfection, which doesn't exist. And if you're going to be competitive, you need to be agile and be able to move quickly. To do that. But to your point, none of that works unless you create that culture and psychological safety that people feel like they can do that.
And I think in some of the bigger companies, that actually is maybe the bigger challenge, because large companies have, by default and by necessity, they have processes, they have procedures and things. And so learning to be agile, like you said, and learning to do things quicker with a little less oversight doesn't mean you take away all the safety nets, et cetera, but a little less oversight is something new for some bigger companies and that type of thing, but it's critical. And again, I give Siemens so much credit. I think Siemens Mobility is doing an excellent job in really kind of stepping into that space and empowering their employees. I mean, it's one of their 4 strategic pillars is empowered employees. So
Yeah.
it's really important.
Yeah.
You'd asked about trends for P&O. I think another specific trend or you said HR, but P&O is
Yeah,
what we call
I know.
I think another very important development in the human resource space is that P&O professionals learn to be analytical, learn to take all sorts of data and interpret it and use it in a predictive capability, not so much here's what happened in the past. Yes, you learn from the past, but really looking at trends and helping managers see ahead of time, helping business leaders see ahead of time things that are potentially coming or likely to happen, and how to change course, stay course, whatever's the appropriate response now before this type of thing occurs, to help them guide the organization and keep the organization on track for growth and innovation and that type of thing. So people analytics, data analytics, I think we're going to continue to see a much more focus in human resource space on that. We used to all have our dashboards where we reported on turnover, we reported on time to fill, we reported on those things. And of course, those are important KPIs because yes, they tell us how efficient we're doing certain things. But now we need to be looking at it for trends. We need to be looking at it for possible emergence of behaviors or occurrences that could take the company off course or alter the company's course, that need different leadership styles or different leadership reactions.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot more of that.
I think in the past, a lot of the HR was reactive as opposed to proactive, kind of what you're, moving to more predictive analytics. And it's been incredible to see that journey. It was only last week that we had our global people analytics summit, and we had over 4,000 heads of people analytics and CHROs join. And that was just incredible for, that role didn't even exist. That function didn't even exist when Shane and I started the business. So that shows the importance of that. And you have to be data driven in order to be a HR leader. You have to be.
And the good thing is, with the development of technology, a lot of that analysis can at least happen through AI and Power BI and different types of things that can help us very quickly churn the data. And it can point to the relevant indicators for you so that you can more quickly get to, wow, so this is what this potentially means. We don't have to spend as much time crunching or comparing graphs or charts now, because the technology can go ahead, the AI can go ahead and do some of that for us. But so that's important, and I think we're going to see that.
It also affects the experience, right? Like back to the employee experience or your manager experience. Your manager now are empowered to they have that data at their fingertips as managers and leaders, and then your employees have that in terms of how they're served, in terms of, rather than the old create a ticket experience to, how many days do I have left for holiday? and they immediately, using technology, they can get an answer to that, right? Or the benefits. So, you name it. It just improves the overall experience for everyone. And then that also then impacts your customers. It's good for everyone.
And you talked about access and diversity. The access to data and to systems and stuff, again, because of technology, has made it so that it's not just a few people who can get access to systems. Through a variety of different means, we can give most employees access to systems, to learning, to data, to technology.
Yeah, and that has a direct impact on speed of innovation, decision making, you name it, right? But in the old days, it was your pay grade and your title gave you this access,
right?
And then you get this access, right? Whereas in reality, it's the people actually closest to the customer, lower down the business, who really understand the business, more so sometimes than even the leaders in the organization, So them having a level of access, of course not full access, but a level of access is super important. Listen, Tam, before I let you go, I'm going to jump into our quick fire round. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask you some questions, but the caveat is you only have 30 seconds per
Oh,
question.
okay.
So no pressure. All right.
Okay.
What are your hobbies and passions outside of the office?
Well, so I'm going to say relatively new young grandmother.
That's a good one.
Um, so, so clearly my passion is my grand. And then I love baseball. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Unfortunately, I'm a Cubs fan, so the end of this year is kind of, yeah, over, but oh well.
No worries. If you could click your fingers and change one thing about HR, what would you change?
Again, I think we're doing a great job in Siemens and in Siemens Mobility, but I think that in some places, HR is still viewed as on the outside looking in. And I know that the way we change that is by showing what we can deliver. But yeah, I think it would be, we've got to push to get to that boardroom table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to start, even 20 years later from when I first started doing this, we're still having that conversation, right? We need to change that.
I think they're great organizations, Siemens being one of them, who fully recognize that. But
Mhm.
yes, I want people to be more interested in HR because they see that already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. This is maybe a bit of a tougher one, but what legacy do you want to leave behind for your family?
And that I had integrity, that I followed what I thought was the right thing to do with passion, with a desire to have an impact, and followed through on that. And that I did it because of the people engaged and not just for myself. If you're doing something for yourself, chances are it's not going to have impact. It's not going to be broad.
Yeah.
And so yes, it needs to be for others.
I,
That's what I'd like my family to
I love
know.
that. What would you say is the biggest investment that you've made in yourself in your career?
Pushing myself to continually do more than I thought I could. Being, those times when I'd say, no, I just really don't want to do that. And then saying, okay, I'll do it. That's the biggest investment, is making yourself take that extra step or going, like I said, stepping outside your comfort zone.
I love that.
Those are the biggest investments you make.
I love
Mhm.
that you invested in seeking discomfort. I love it,
Yeah, yeah.
which is incredible. Who would you say is the one person in your career that's had the biggest impact?
I would say there are two people. Sorry, you
No, it's
asked for
fine.
one.
No, it's fine. Good.
Yeah, there was a former vice president of human resources for the first Siemens company I joined that I just he could see around corners. He was so
You'll
visionary.
give him a shout out. What's his name? You got to give him a shout out.
Mike Troy, just
Amazing.
awesome. Could see around corners. I very quickly wanted to learn to think like he did. And then also there was a finance business partner, Sasha Kuipert, who really, I think, did a phenomenal job, kind of the same thing, seeing trends and seeing the value of bringing HR into the strategy discussion and the development of people as a part of business strategy. Both of those individuals, I feel like, pushed me to be the best that I could be.
Yeah,
So,
and I can certainly, even just from getting to know you for the last, half an hour, 40 minutes, I can see how they've impacted you and the way you think and that you approached it in a great way, as well. Love that. Last question.
mhm.
What's a parting piece of advice would you give to the HR leaders of tomorrow?
The most important advice I think would be to not decide now or to not close off ideas, to be open to new ideas, to be open to things that you don't yet understand, but know that there is going to be continual change, continual evolution. And instead of fighting it, resisting it because you're not comfortable with it, just open up to it. Say, okay, help me. If you can't figure it out, get someone who can help you figure it out. Say, help me understand why this is going to make a difference, or what does this look like if we continue down this path? Be inquisitive, be open, don't resist. I think resisting is useless, right? Because technology, evolution, innovation is going to move on. And so
Yeah.
you just need to open your mind to, I'm going to be part of it.
Amazing. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing the journey that you're on. We have to catch up again in a couple of years for part 2. See how you're getting on.
All right.
Since
Thank
then,
you for inviting.
But I wish you all the best until we next speak. Thanks so much.
Okay. You too. Thank you.